I want to quickly bring into this conversation Dr. Vail Awad, a very senior journalist who understands this region very well. My colleague Sandeep Punithan stays with me on this broadcast. Dr. Awad, your appreciation of Donald Trump reiterating surrender and Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, saying no question of surrender. If America joins the war, there will be irreparable damage. What do you make of this?
Well, I think we all know that he has given the green signal to Netanyahu to attack and the preemptive strike. He was fully aware of it. You remember he was already evacuating the American Marines families from the Gulf state. They say unnecessarily staying there a week before the attack. And they had a round of talk in Sunday in Muscat in Oman. And then 2 days before the talk, he already, Netanyahu took the full advantage into a preemptive strike. And this strike, as you know, it's not meant for the nuclear side. I mean, 300 targets inside Iran was not meant. They removed generals, they removed scientists, they killed civilians, and they thought that there will be an overall revolt inside Iran and the government will fall. So it's a regime change, then followed by the question of the nuclear side. That is what the objective of the whole operation actually.
And that objective, Sandeep, still remains unfulfilled because given the fact that Iran's able to use its Fateh-1 hypersonic missiles, or at least that's the information that's coming in from Tehran, it means even 6 days later, Tehran has not folded.
Absolutely, Gaurav. And we forget the number of missiles that Iran has. It has over 3,000 ballistic missiles by one estimate. And while Israel has said that it's taken out 1/3 of Iran's launchers and its capability to launch ballistic missiles, there's still 2/3 of those launchers that are out there and possibly dispersed across Iran's geography. And that explains the continuing strikes at Israel. So it's literally, a battle of attrition, Gaurav, that Iran has begun. Israel has, of course, been fighting this war of attrition from the 7th of October 2023, but Iran is playing that same game again now with Israel and, continuing to fire these ballistic missiles, these hypersonic missiles, as we're just showing our viewers on screen, which are, almost impossible to intercept. Iran has plenty more of those, hypersonic missiles, Gaurav, and it's a matter of who runs out of missiles first. And, there is a limit to Israel's the interceptor missiles that it has in its arsenal. We are seeing estimates of 10 to 12 days of interceptor missiles. And Iran's signaling by this that it can go on for several more days, Gaurav. And the regime is also signaled. The Supreme Leader Khamenei's statement today seems to suggest that they're not folding up, they're not buckling, they're not surrendering unconditionally the way President Donald Trump wants them to. So there's still a lot of fight left in Iran, Gaurav.
Is that also your appreciation, Dr. Awad? Iran has a lot of fight left in it. A large number of hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, though their aircraft, their fighter jets, their air bases, to a very large extent unusable. The fact that Israel claims it has total air superiority or air supremacy in this region. If America were to step in and use their B-2 bombers and their GBU-57 bombs to take out the Fordo nuclear facility, would that signal that Iran cannot go on?
Well, let's remember, Gaurav, that Iran was under fire and it was attacked by another nation who is a undeclared nuclear state, having more than 90 nuclear arsenals, and attacking a state which is ambitious, maybe, in the future of having a nuclear weapon, which is already the peaceful discussion was with the IEA. And everybody knows that the IEA, even they have claimed since 2024 that Iran does not have the nuclear bomb. So is it seriously the nuclear bomb or no? So Iran knows that it has been, look at the West Asia, Gaurav, and you've been following the development from Gaza Strip to Lebanon, to Syria, to Iraq. Now Iran only left in this region to continue to conquer the whole of the West Asia. Because once you have the control on the Strait of Hormuz and the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea, then you are putting lots of pressure on countries like India, China, Korea, who's depending mainly on the 40% supply lines from these places. So it's not that to see the war in isolation from Iran or the voice of Iran and Israel or US and Iran, because Iran is a geopolitically very important state for the north-south corridor, which we know from Russia, Azerbaijan, Iran, and India. And then also we have a corridor of the BRI from China. So it is the importance of presence of Iran is still a hurdle for the Israeli dominance in the region. So Iran have been preparing since 1979 when the revolution took over, and then Khomeini came to power. He has been building their arms and self-reliance because the American fooled them and ditched them and give all their nuclear program. By the way, Gaurav, you know that the nuclear program of Iran was started by the United States
Yes.
from 1950 to 1979, and including Germany, France, and also UK. And then when the revolution took over, they halted the program. They give all the data to Saddam Hussein, who bombed the Bushehr reactors, which was the American provided to Iran. So what I'm trying to say here is that Iran knew that it is the only country left in this region where Israel is unable to achieve its objective. They were able to attack Syria. They were able to attack Lebanon, attack Houthis, because there is no retaliation. Here you miscalculated Iran potential power. Iran have not used it. They have not used even their generation, fifth or sixth generation, which they have. They just used the third generation of the weaponry they have. And actually, it is not the nuclear program, finally, I must say. It is because of the ballistic missile capabilities and the drones that Iran have. That is what caused danger to Israel. And that is what America wanted to continue and close the work of Iran, that to halt not only its nuclear, but also its ballistic missile technology program.
That's a very pertinent point you make there in terms of the aim for a regime change in Iran and the reasons for it. Sandeep, given that situation, is Iran in a position to continue fighting longer? The questions are, how long can it continue to fight? There are countries like the United Arab Emirates, perhaps, and Russia, the only two, one that are calling out America's alleged involvement or likely involvement. Two calling for a ceasefire. Are they likely to be heard? And how long can Iran last?
Well, Gaurav, Iran can last almost indefinitely. It's almost impossible to change a regime from the air. An air bombing alone is not going to achieve any objectives. You have to have boots on the ground. You have to launch a ground invasion of the kind the United States did with Saddam Hussein's Iraq in 2003. Of course, that was a catastrophic mistake. It was premised on false intelligence, that invasion. It should never have happened. Now, there is no country in the world today, Gaurav, that can
weapons of mass destruction. You're true.
200,000 soldiers to launch an invasion of, Iran, and that's the only way that you can effect regime change in Iran. So, to answer your question, how long can Iran last out this thing? Almost indefinitely. It can continue as long as there is no ground invasion of which seems very, very remote. There is nobody on the horizon. There are just about 50 or 60,000 troops, U.S. Soldiers in West Asia across bases, and all of the activity that we are seeing, Gaurav, points to air campaigns, basically to bomb Iran into submission and to destroy its nuclear weapons capabilities. Of course, if the regime collapses, that would be a bonus. But I guess while people are talking about that, it seems very unlikely that the regime would collapse because of a wave of aerial bombardment. Gaurav.
What's the commentary in that region, Dr. Awad? Is America likely to join this battle with its B-2 bombers? Is America likely to target Fordo? Is that likely to, lead to a situation where Iran collapses? Are you looking at a regime change?
I think what the Iranian and the American are planning, Gaurav, is very closely watching because of the Azerbaijan. They have already using their airspace, and the Mossad have a huge intelligence apparatus inside Azerbaijan, and maybe they are using their airspace and refueling from Azerbaijan to attack Iran. A similar fashion also with American putting lots of pressure on Pakistan. And you know that defense minister is meeting with the president of the United States in Washington, D.C. That's a clear indication that Washington wanted to use ground forces, even if they move their proxies in the region, to destabilize Iran. That's yes. Sandeep is right when he said there is no, border between Israel and and Israel, but at the end of the day, they wanted the United States to take
Iran.
part in this
Yeah.
war. And I am not naive to believe that the United States, including the NATO forces, did not usually actually attack Iran already.
Okay, so it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen what happens in the next 48 hours, which look very crucial. Will the United States use its military hardware? Is negotiation still possible? United Arab Emirates is calling for it, but how many more across the world will join that chorus, or are there others on board that there will be a regime change in Iran? We will continue to track developments on that story very closely, but that's all I have for you on this special broadcast. Dr. Vail Awad and Sandeep Unithan for joining me here on this India Today special broadcast. Many thanks.